Oh, love you, baby. Today I'm going to review the Necron Chapter Approved 2018. How have all the changes affected our codex? Well, let's find out. It's coming right up.
Necrons!
Necrons! Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. And if you're new to the channel and you want to keep up to date with the Wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss an upload. I upload on a Monday, Thursday and Saturday every week. Okay, so Chapter Approved 2018 is finally here, and as Necron players we waited with bated breath for this release, with our fingers crossed that we had an army-wide points reduction, something we really did need because our codex was just overcosted.
Necrons!
Well, we've had some points reductions and it's been very interesting hearing people's opinions on these reductions. Some people are very happy, some people think it's okay, and quite a number of people think it's not good enough. However, what do I think? Let's find out. Okay, so what we're going to do first is have a look at the points reductions. We're going to have a chat about each of the units, and then we're going to have a look at my lists and how many points I've saved. Necron love. And then once we've done that, we're going to have a look at the new missions and see how they've affected our Necrons. And of course, I'm only going to review the match play rules in this video. Nice jumper, Nick. Okay, so let's talk points for Necrons. Now, one thing we were hoping for in the Chapter Approved was to be able to take a small, cheap battalion detachment in our army, allowing us to unlock the CPs. We had talk of scarab swarms becoming troops, allowing us to take small units of those. However, that hasn't happened. We have had some points reductions, but overall we haven't had enough to field a cheap battalion. Our battalions have got cheaper. However, let's have a look at those points reductions and see if those units in the battalion have got better from it. Okay, so first of all, let's have a look at the troops. Now, the first troops choice that I want to talk about are the Immortals. Now, the Immortals haven't actually come down in points per model. However, their weapons, both gun options, have come down by 2 points, making our Immortals now 15 points with the gun. Now, I have to say I'm very happy with this points reduction on Immortals. Immortals are already very good, especially the Tesla variety. Once those have been buffed with Mine Will Be Done, they can be very devastating. And now they're 2 points each cheaper. That means a squad of 10 is going to be 20 points cheaper. Overall, I'm very happy with that. Of course, Immortals can go down very quickly. There's been an argument for having 2 wounds on these models. However, if you play them right, you're not too aggressive, you keep them in terrain, you keep them out of trouble, they can survive and they can do a lot of damage. And now they are cheaper. But how about Warriors? Now, Warriors have come down 1 point per model. Not a huge amount, and to be fair, probably a little bit disappointing. If we were ever going to have a cheap battalion, then cheap warriors is what was needed. Now, it must be hard to point cost a warrior, the fact that they have reanimation protocol and they can come back each turn. The points have to reflect the fact that they can reanimate. Of course, what we know is if the unit is wiped out, you lose that ability. And warriors are quite easily to kill with their 4+ save. However, now we can take a nice big unit of 20 and save ourselves 20 points. Add that into savings on the Immortals, bearing in mind you can take Immortals in units of 5 if you want to, but they won't do a great deal. The bigger the squads, the better, especially if you're taking advantage of Mine Will Be Done. Now, of course, the battalion isn't all about the troops, so let's have a look at the HQs. Okay, so let's have a look at the HQs. Now, first I'm going to look at the standard HQs, and then we'll look at the named characters. So the standard HQs have had 2 points reductions. One is the Catacomb Command Barge, which has come down 14 points. And the other one is the Lord, coming down at 8 points. That's 65 points without the war gear, making him one of our cheapest HQ choices. Now the Lord is a very good unit, but of course we do have the Overlord, the Cryptic, and now a cheaper Catacomb Command Barge, which I think overall is probably the winner out of those units. My Will Be Done is one of the most useful special rules that we have, and now we can have that on our Command Barge with more movement and a bigger range at less points. Now it's worth noting that the Warsigh has also come down 2 points, so some of our characters are at least going to get slightly cheaper if you're taking the Warsigh. Now in terms of the named characters, we've got Illuminor, which has come down 23 points, Imitate the Stormlord coming down a whopping 40 points, Nemesor coming down 30 points, Trazyn coming down 10 points, and Vargard coming down 15 points. Now again, we have the same issue here where our other HQs, like the Overlord, the Cryptic, the Command Barge, and possibly the Lord, sort of are better than those named characters. Now the named characters can bring some nice stuff to your armies. If you have a certain plan for them, well, now they're cheaper to use, which is, of course, great. Imitate the Stormlord is probably the biggest winner, coming in now at 160 points. That's quite a reasonable amount of points, especially the fact that you can do double My Will Be Done with that character. So there you go, we've got some points reductions on the units that go into the battalion detachment. Now we've got a reduction enough to make a reasonably small, ineffective battalion detachment just to get those CPs, but I think if you're going to go in the direction of battalion, you're probably better off actually putting more points into those units, and now we don't need as many points to make them work. So overall, I think generally I'm pretty happy with both the troops and the HQ reductions. They could be better, but on the whole, a reduction is better than nothing. Okay, so continuing on with named characters, we're now in the Elites slot. Now the Elites slot is quite interesting, so let's have a closer look. Now first of all, we've got the Nightbringer. Now the Nightbringer has come down 30 points, bringing it in at 180 points. Pretty cheap for a monstrous creature. However, I still think the Deceiver brings more to the table for the extra points, allowing you to use Grand Illusion, which is a pretty powerful special rule. I think the Deceiver is still going to be the main C'tan shard on the table, but now the Nightbringer, if you've got a few hundred points left in your army list, could be an option. Now other units in the elite slots, we've got the Death Marks. Now Death Marks have come down 2 points each, so that's 17 points a model. Now personally, I've never really got much out of my Death Marks. They make quite a nice distraction unit, and they are now a little bit cheaper, but not dramatically cheaper. Now one thing which has dropped dramatically is our Praetorians, dropping 6 points. Now this is a huge reduction, going from 22 points to 16 points. Now that doesn't include the war gear options, however that is a nice points reduction to see, making a unit of 10 a lot more viable now. Now again, I haven't used Praetorians that much. I did use them in the Index, but I haven't used them in the Codex, so I think maybe it's now time to try them out. Now I was a little bit disappointed that Flayed Ones haven't been reduced at all, not a single point, so still 17 points. I have 60 Flayed Ones, I was hoping to see them come down in cost, so I must admit, from a personal note, I am very disappointed by Flayed Ones. However, Lichguard, whilst not coming down as a base model, the Dispersion Shield option has come down by 6 points. Again, making a unit of 5 as a bodyguard a bit more viable, or a big unit of 10 more viable. So that's nice to see. Now the last elites option is the Triarch Stalker, and that's come down a massive 32 points, Not only that, but the twin heavy gauze cannon, which is the weapon of choice from my point of view. I like the long range and the damage output that it can do. Well, that's come down 14 points as well. I think the Triarch Stalker is really viable now. In actual fact, I think I want another one. So some interesting stuff in the elite slot, but how about the fast attack choices? Well, not too much change there. The main change is on the Wraiths. Now the Wraiths have come down 7 points a model, 48 points a model. Still not exactly cheap, but we know Wraiths are great on the table, and as long as there's nothing that can take away their invulnerable save, they're actually very survivable. So Wraiths cheaper, that is great to see. Now Tomb Blades, although they haven't come down on their base points cost, the weapon options, like the Immortals, have also come down 2 points. And as we know, Tomb Blades are one of the best units in the Codex, along with Destroyers, so a points reduction on those is fantastic. Now Heavy Support is next, but sitting between Fast Attack and Heavy Support is the Heavy Destroyer. You can take one Heavy Destroyer in the Fast Attack unit, and you can take a unit of Heavy Destroyers in the Heavy Support slot. Now whilst the Destroyer body itself hasn't come down in points, the Heavy Gauze Cannon has come down by 7 points, making Destroyers and Heavy Destroyers the same points cost now at 50 points a model. That means that a unit of Heavy Destroyers have come down 21 points to 150, making them a little bit more viable. However, I think there's more viable units in the Heavy Support slot, so let's have a look at those next. So we've got a 33 points reduction on an Annihilation Barge. We've got 33 points reduction on a Doomsday Ark. Yes, Doomsday Arks have come down in points. That is awesome to see. And then we've got a 61 points reduction on a Monolith. That makes the Monolith 320 points. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And then we've got a 25 points reduction on the Transcendent C'tan. So the Annihilation Barge, 33 points cheaper. I think that's going to help us take that particular unit. The Barge does suffer from the range of the gun and the fact that it can go down quickly. However, at the points reduction cost, I think it's a bit more usable now. Now the Doomsday Ark, I don't think we need to say too much there. One of our best Heavy Support choices are now 33 points cheaper. That is just great to see. The Monolith, so 61 points cheaper, and it's fair to say that just isn't enough. 320 points is way overcosted for what the Monolith does. The fact that it doesn't have quantum shielding, living metal is only 1 wound returned, and the guns themselves are a bit under par for the points. So you're still not going to see the Monolith on the table. It's still overcosted. I think the Monolith needs to be about 250 points to make it viable for the rules that it has. Now lastly is the Transcendent C'tan, which at 25 points cheaper is now 200 points. The Deceiver is 225 points. I still think the Deceiver is the better option, giving you more tactical options. However, the Transcendent C'tan, especially with its 3+ invulnerable save option, is a usable unit, and at 200 points just helps him get into your lists. Okay, so next is dedicated transports. Okay, so the Ghost Ark. Now the Ghost Ark has come down 15 points, bringing it in at 145 points. Now the trouble with the Ghost Ark is it has the same problems, in particular that you can't put a character and a unit of warriors on the Ghost Ark. You also can't shoot the warriors out of the Ghost Ark. The Ghost Ark is still very useful, especially if you're taking blobs of warriors. They can help reanimate those warriors. However, I still think you're not going to see a huge amount of Ghost Arks on the table from this points reduction. Now the Flyers is quite interesting. The Doom Scythe has come down 55 points, now 150, and the Night Scythe has come down 25 points, now 135. Now, both of these units still suffer, once again, from the same problem, and that is they are very easy to take down first turn. Now, you can counter that by having other units on the table that your opponent may want to shoot at instead, but it is a worry that those units can be taken down so quickly. Quantum shielding would be great on these flyers. Hard to hit, of course, does help. Now, I think the Doom Scythe is probably the main one that people may start to take now, because 55 points cheaper, that's 150 points for a Doom Scythe. That's not too bad, even if you were to lose it first turn. You haven't lost quite as many valuable points. So I think the Doom Scythe, in the right dynasty where you can move and shoot at normal ballistic skill, is probably the winner out of the flyers. Now, next is the Lord of Wars, and we've got the Obelisk having a reduction of 46 points, bringing it in at 380, and the Tesseract Vault going up, yes, a points increase by 70 points. That brings it in at 566 points. Of course, the Vault is the unit which everyone is taking in the competitive scene, and that has now seen a points increase. Now, the Obelisk is quite interesting, coming in now at 1 point cheaper than what the Monolith used to be, and the Obelisk has the advantage of toughness 8 with a 4+ invulnerable save. I think you might see Obelisks appear in Necron army lists. Not necessarily an auto-include unit, but you will see Obelisks in Necron armies, I think, now. The Vault, even though it has gone up on points, will be played still because it's a great unit, but you may not necessarily see quite as many Vaults on the table. Time will tell, I suppose. Now, there are some Forge World point reductions in Chapter Approved, and we're going to have a look at those next. First of all, though, I'm going to have a quick run through of the point changes of the weapon options in the Necron Codex. So the reductions are as follows. Gauls Blasters are down 2 points, the Immortals love that, and also potentially Tomb Blades. The Heat Ray is down 14 points, the Heavy Gauls Cannon 7 points, the Particle Shredder 11 points, and then we've got a 2 points reduction on Tesla Carbines for Immortals and Tomb Blades, and then we've got a 14 points reduction on the Twin Heavy Gauls Cannon for the Triarch Stalker. And that's all the points reductions in the Codex. So let's have a look at Forge World. Okay, so Forge World, and it's fair to say there's been some big points reductions here. So we've got the Tomb Sentinel and the Tomb Stalker both coming down by 35 points. The Gauss Pylon has come down 75 points. Now that brings it down to its original points cost before they put it up in last year's Chapter Approved. So we're looking at 475 points now. I think you'll see the Gauss Pylon on the table again more often. We've got an 85 points reduction on the Night Shroud. I'm actually quite liking that. That's 185 points now. The Sentry Pylon has come down 30 points. That's a very welcome points reduction. 70 points now for the Pylon. Of course, that's without the gun option. And then the Tesseract Arc has come down a massive 60 points. So now, as opposed to 220 points, it's 160. If you've got those models, I think you'll be very happy. I don't have them yet, but I do want to get some. Tohulk the Blinded has come down 40 points, reducing him to 125. Now that is very good. And the Staff of Light has come down 8 points to 10 points. Previously, for some reason, that was 18. So overall, a good point reduction there from Forge World. So, a lot of our Necron units have gone down in points.
Necrons!
But, where do we go from here? Well, what I like to do is have a look at my current lists. The lists that I've been playing with the Necron Codex. I find that's a good starting block, so let's have a look at some of my lists and see how many points I've saved. Okay, so list number 1, my Assault Crons. This army doesn't have a single gun in it, and I've saved 128 points with this list. It's fair to say not many of the units in it have had a points reduction, with the exception of the Wraiths. However, 128 points extra to spend on that list. Okay, so list number 2, my Stormcrons. This is the list that I took to the Confrontation 3 tournament, and this list now is 191 points cheaper. Now that is pretty good. Okay, so list number 3 is my Teslacrons. Now this army only has Tesla guns in it, and I've saved myself 201 points. Now that means that I can get a lot more Tesla in this army and make it a lot more deadlier. Okay, so list number 4, and this brings the biggest savings in any of my current lists that I have, and that's my crazy Necron pylon list, saving me 345 points. Wow, what a saving. That means I can get the death rate on all of those sentry pylons if I wish, or add in some infantry. I'm definitely going to develop this list in the future. Okay, so list number 5 is my old Crons. This is the list with 2 monoliths in that I took up against 6+ Devo in my last battle report. Now this list comes in at 183 points less than it was. That means I can get some long range shooting in the list, which is going to be very, very useful. Now list number 6 you haven't seen yet. It involves my Necron Seraptic Super Heavy Construct, and my new list is now coming in at 112 points cheaper. More to come on the list in another video. Now I've also been working on another fun list with my Seraptic. It involves a super heavy detachment, the Vault, the Pylon and the Seraptic all in one list. Now this list is coming in at 112 points cheaper than it was. So again, more to come on that list. Okay, so there you go. As you can see, I've saved quite a number of points on most of my lists. Around 200 points on average. Enough to put 1 extra unit in each of my lists. Now whilst that isn't absolutely amazing, it does at least give us more to play with. It gives us more options when making a list. Now are Necrons now competitive? Well, they're certainly better than they were. However, I don't think they're going to be a top-end tournament army, and indeed I don't think they're going to win any grand tournaments. But we are in a better place, and surely that's what really counts. Now, as well as the points reductions, we've also got 12 brand new missions, 6 Eternal War and 6 Maelstrom. Now there's 2 things to note regarding these missions, 2 fairly big changes. The first one is whoever finishes deploying first now can choose whether to go first or second. There is no dice roll in these missions. Now I think as Necron players this could be quite advantageous to us. I think there's going to be quite a number of times that we will finish deploying first, and having the option to go first or second is a great advantage, so I'm quite liking that in the missions. However, there's also another new rule. It's called acceptable casualties, and this takes away the sudden death of these particular missions. So even if you get wiped, if you get tabled, you don't necessarily automatically lose these games. If you have more objective points than your opponent, you can still win. Now this is very, very interesting, and also plays into the hands of how Necrons win games, and that is by playing the mission. So now objective points are ultra important, and that's something we need to consider when building our lists. Now the new missions do look very interesting. I'm looking forward to playing them. One of the missions even has a special rule which takes away your invulnerable save if you're near an objective. I bet the 1,000 Suns are going to love that. But who will be playing those missions? Will they make it into your standard games? Will they make it into competitive match play? Okay, so there you go. That's what I think of Chapter Approved for Necrons. What do you think? Let me know in the comments box below. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed the video and you're not subscribed yet, start now. Hit the Idic Beer icon. If you want to see the battle report of me playing 6+ Devo with my 2 monoliths, then check out that video Just there. Beam me up.